Then she stepped around the corner. She didn't rush. She didn't stumble. She simply appeared. An old woman with gray hair pulled back loosely, pale skin, clothes that looked outdated, not dirty, just wrong.
Hello, this will be a story about some haunted churches. Many people think that you can experience a paranormal activity in a church because it's the house of God. But some spirits are not necessarily bad spirits, they are just lost right in the entrance of God's kingdom. Or this might just be a story for some of you, but if you don't have enough respect for it, it might become your next reality. Let's begin with our program, What Crawls in the Nights. I was never a religious person, but around the age of 22, I had formed a relationship with a guy that was a Byzantine painter. His job was to create portraits of saints and was also working in church restoration. It just so happened that back then he was working in a big church on an island and he was restoring fresco paintings on the walls. I went along to catch a bit of vacation from my work since it was on a sunny island. And since I wanted to also help him out, I was in charge of climbing up and down the scaffold that we had placed on the walls and bringing him different tools. The job had to be done at night since during the day with all the people visiting the church it was almost impossible. It was one of those nights while we were working up on the scaffold that a strange happening took place in the big church. Before I continue, a little info about the entrance. The entrance had two doors, one heavy wooden door several meters high on the outside that had about the thickness of a human body and took two people to open it and close it. It was locked with a heavy metal lock and a big latch that was on the inside about half the size of a child's arm. The priest would lock from the inside and then use a small normal size side door to exit the church. Then, after that, there was a small hall and a second glass door with heavy double glass and similar height as the main entrance of the church, which would also lock with a big metal lock. During the night, both of those doors were locked safely. Now back to the strange happening. At first, we heard a loud banging sound coming from the outside door, and the ground of the inside of the church started to shake, as if a huge earthquake was happening. We were very surprised, and since the original sound came from the entrance, we both turned around to look what was happening, while holding on to dear life from the scaffold that was several meters above the ground. We saw with our own eyes the heavy outside wooden door to pop open as if it weighted nothing. The force was so strong that it broke the lock. The huge latch that was on top came out of its place and flew in the air, hitting the wooden frame of the glass door and ending up on the ground. We were left with our jaws hanging down. After the door popped open, there was nothing behind it. Nothing at all. No humans, no bulldozers, no crew of bodybuilders. It was just the dark woods that we could see beyond the door. Then, the second sound came. The glass door started shaking as if a giant was holding it from both sides and was trying to crush it. The door was shaking so violently that it looked like it would come out of its position on the wall and shatter like a glass toy. That went on for several minutes that felt like an eternity, and all that time we were just frozen, looking towards the invisible force that was trying to break down the entrance. But the second door didn't shatter. Instead, as if nothing had ever happened, everything stopped abruptly. Not a single sound was heard after that. We managed to get our shit together and climb down from the scaffold, leaving everything behind while running. Before leaving, we managed to remember we had to flip the circuit breaker to turn all the lights off, and so we did. After leaving the church, we ran towards the room we were given by the priest to sleep in. There were guest rooms that they had available for visiting priests, artists working at the church, or people that needed a place to sleep. It was located behind the church and was 2 stories high, so it was overlooking the church. We looked out the window and all the lights were suddenly turned on. Every single one of them. All the windows around the church were emitting a bright light. We had for sure turned the circuit breaker down before exiting because it was placed next to the side entrance. But now all the lights were on? That lasted about 10 minutes, and then the church became dark again. At that point, there was no way we could get any sleep. We just waited for the dawn to come. We took the decision to call the priest at the crack of dawn to arrange a meeting before he headed to the church so we could tell him what happened. We certainly did not want to get blamed for a broken door. He listened to us silently. Even after we were finished, he did not say a word. He did not blame us for any of this either. He just accepted it. All as if it was a natural thing and he already knew about it. He only called a specialized locksmith to repair the damage at the door and the latch. We never received any explanation for any of this. And my ex-now boyfriend stopped working there altogether. Of course, I also never stepped a foot in there again. And until today, several years later, I still remember that place. I still dream about that place. And I still have no idea what that thing, force, or whatever that was. Well guys, for today's video, there will be 2 stories. So you guys haven't finished the video quite yet. This is another church related story. So get ready. This will be the second story of the night. This happened a few years ago, but when I think about it, I still feel the same tightness in my chest. My mom used to work at this old church, a big one, too big for the small town it sat in. A place with long hallways that carried echoes further than they should, and rooms that always seemed colder than the rest of the building. When our parents worked, we were left to roam. We played hide and seek, tag, explored places we probably shouldn't have. It felt harmless. The church was safe. That's what adults say about churches. At the back of the building, past the main sanctuary and storage rooms, there was a large open area hardly anyone used. At the far left corner of that space was a stairwell. We had always been told not to go down there. No explanation, just don't. Which, of course, made us want to. We stood at the top of the stairs for a long time that day. The light from behind us barely reached the bottom. The stairwell swallowed it. The air coming up from below felt colder. Still, one of my friends laughed and said we were being babies. So we went down. The stairs creaked under our weight, and the sound echoed too loudly. When we reached the bottom, it wasn't a basement like I expected. It was a maze, narrow hallways stretching in different directions, low ceilings, doors lining both sides, identical and closed. The walls were close enough that we had to walk single file. It didn't feel like part of the church. It felt like something built underneath it. I was second in line. I remember staring at the back of my friend's shirt, trying not to look at the doors as we passed them. They all had handles. None had windows. After a few turns, I realized something. There were no sounds from upstairs anymore. No footsteps, no distant talking, no hum of activity. It was like the church above us had disappeared. Then we heard it. A loud noise, not scratching, not scurrying, a solid impact like something heavy hitting a wall. It came from ahead of us. We froze. Silence followed, thick and total. The kind that presses against your ears until you start imagining that you can hear your own pulse in the walls. One of us whispered that it was probably just mice, but mice don't make sounds like that. We kept moving, slower now. Every step felt deliberate. The hallway seemed longer than it had a moment before. Then, she stepped around the corner. She didn't rush. She didn't stumble. She simply appeared. An old woman with gray hair pulled back loosely, pale skin, clothes that looked outdated, not dirty, just wrong, like something you'd see in an old photograph. She didn't say anything. She just smiled at us. It wasn't wide, not exaggerated, just enough to show teeth. And she was looking directly at my friend in front. No blinking, no confusion, no surprise at seeing 4 children in a place they weren't supposed to be. Just that smile. We stood there, frozen. I couldn't even feel my hands anymore. It was like my body had gone hollow. Then, something inside me snapped, and I ran, or tried to. The hallway was too narrow. We tripped over each other, shoulders slamming into walls. I shoved my friend in front of me, yelling at him to go faster. My voice sounded wrong, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Behind us, I expected pounding footsteps, but there were none. Just the sound of our shoes scraping against concrete. When we finally burst up the stairs into the open church, we turned around. The stairwell was empty. No footsteps, no shadows, no woman. Later, we were trying to calm down. My friend said something that made it worse. He said when he looked back while we were running, she was still there, walking, not chasing, just walking on a steady pace, still smiling, like she knew she didn't need to hurry. He also said there was a door behind her, one we hadn't noticed before, slightly open, dark inside, None of us remember seeing that door when she first appeared. And here's the part that bothers me the most. We asked our parents later, who worked at the church, if there were rooms under the building like that. They looked confused. There was only one small storage basement. No maze, no rows of doors, just a single open space. I've tried to convince myself we panicked, that our memory twisted it. But sometimes I think about that hallway, about how quiet it was, about the way she didn't run. And I wonder if we weren't exploring something under the church, but something that wasn't meant for us at all. Well guys, that will be today's video. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys like these church haunted stories, because I'm gonna keep uploading more like these. And remember guys, don't ignore the sounds tonight. You've already awakened it. Good night, and don't let the bedbugs bite.